It's not just that new solutions have to work with your existing workflows, but you have all these other stakeholders, customers, clients, partner organizations, and whatever you adopt has to not just not screw your operations up, but it also has to not screw their operations up.
Okay, and so one of the things that I enjoy about these conversations, I think you're thoughtful about the ecosystem, you're thoughtful about the outcomes. You're also kind of a nerd. And I've seen you nerd out, which I just love on some of the tech and some of the problems. So, let's pick one. Like, what's one problem space or one solution area where you have just been like, oh, I can nerd out on that all day?
Okay, here's something that's been kind of top of mind for me lately, and actually, this was also a problem that we surfaced last year in the Logistics Opportunity Challenge, right? So, cargo theft. Obviously, it's a big problem.
I don't think people, by the way, I don't think people know how big of a problem. Can we talk about this?
Yeah, let's talk about this. So, probably people who are listening to this that aren't actively involved in the logistics industry, when I say cargo theft, they're probably thinking either about people stealing Amazon packages from their porch, or sometimes you see news stories about people, literally robbing a truck in a stick-up style with guns.
Yeah.
Those things do happen, but they're actually a very small percentage of the actual theft and fraud that happens in the industry, which mostly is incredibly sophisticated, very high tech. And that's the issue, right? If stick-up crews robbing trucks with guns was that big of a problem, then trucks would just have guns on them. To be perfectly honest, but
for our international listeners, welcome to America.
Welcome to America. But it's not enough. It's actually not that, right? That's not the issue. If that was an issue, it's actually, honestly, relatively simple to solve. Yeah. But it's way more like, okay, so because everything is fragmented in the logistics industry, let me just outline a case study, right? So I'm a shipper. I am someone who makes something and I need it to be shipped from point A to point B. I don't handle the shipping myself. I reach out to a transportation company to do this for me. We have a contract with them. We work with them, on a constant basis. But this company, they got a lot of employees coming in and out, right? Truck driver is a heavy overturn job. So it's not that I've got the same guy who's showing up to my door every day to pick up the latest deliveries. So what happens is, if I'm the shipper and I'm shipping, let's say, something high value, right? Let's say I'm shipping PlayStation 5s. I'm just expecting, hey, a truck's going to show up at 10 a.m. and they're going to take this big load of PlayStation 5s. A truck shows up at 10 a.m. They've got maybe an email or something that shows that they're supposed to be there. This is how it happens every week. So I just think, okay, great, come on in, get the PlayStation 5s. And then, $25,000 of merchandise is just gone. And
25 million potentially.
Exactly. So that's really how most of it is happening. And there's all this stuff with, it's not just about knowing where to be and when, but folks are mimicking people's identities. They are double brokering loads, so as skimming off the top there. So one of the things that we've been really trying to think about, and we saw some great solutions for cargo theft last year, but nothing that's, there's still not a market leader. There's still not something that people are ready to adopt and saying like, oh, hey, that's great. And that's because all of the tech-based solutions that we've seen so far, to really work and solve these more like high-tech problems, they need to be adopted across the supply chain all at once. And that's just not really going to happen unless there's some sort of federal rule around it. But so, hey, open call to anyone listening to this. By the time you're hearing this podcast, applications will be open for the Epicenter Logistics Opportunity Challenge. If you think you can solve some cargo theft issues, and again, it's not people with guns, it's people with phones, it's people with computers, it's people with generative AI who are duplicating phone numbers, right? So you're getting the text from the number you're expecting to get the text from, things like that.
Well, and it's such a fascinating problem space, right? Because you think about like what's going on. You can do risk assessments against the different people in the supply chain, but that's hard. You can try and track your actual cargo. There's a whole like industry of people with various sensors, but sometimes that's detectable, and sometimes great, you can track it as it disappears off to Shenzhen, but that doesn't help you much,
exactly.
right? Like, yeah, I mean, who knows? There's all kinds of things that you can potentially do, but it is a hard problem because it's fragmented. Let me tell you one of my favorites, and this is another recurring challenge area, and that is the challenge area of communicating with your truckers, communicating with your customers, communicating with whoever. And I learned recently that there are companies with people, like multiple people, that have to do things like regular call downs to your trucks, right? I think maybe, I don't know, maybe we live in a world where we imagine that the what are they called, the in-truck tracking and information systems are fully
the ELDs.
I mean, there's unbelievable tech, but there's also this overlay of manual work, right? And so someone told me, hey, I've got staff that have to call all my truckers every so often, check in with them, et cetera, and that's a big body of work. And and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I just got a pitch from a startup that has a full AI contact center, right? And like, it's almost indistinguishable from a human, and that more than capable of handling a basic conversation. And you start to see these really interesting opportunities, right? Where you can overlay tech for kind of the simple tasks and then use your humans for escalation paths. Wait, like this conversation's out of whack, or they said something I can't handle. And you start to see these opportunities, but they're opportunities that are impossible to discover or really hard to discover when you're in the day-to-day of running your business, right? Like, how can you possibly know what the state of the art is on risk prediction when you're trying to get your material loaded onto a pallet?
And because the industry is so fragmented too, right? Everyone's so many. There's a couple fully diversified, like FedEx, right? They do everything from distribution to last mile delivery. It's a FedEx employee who is picking something up from a factory in a big truck, and it's also a FedEx employee who is taking the single thing off that truck and putting it at your doorstep. But that's rare in the industry. Most companies are doing one piece of that supply chain really well, but they don't venture too far outside of that piece. So then you also run into all these problems where it's not just that new solutions have to work with your existing workflows, but you have all these other stakeholders, customers, clients, partner organizations, and whatever you adopt has to not screw your operations up, but it also has to not screw their operations up.
Yeah, your partners, your vendors, your customers won't want to work with you. Right? And it's this weird version of like kind of innovator's dilemma. Like there's all these incumbency challenges that you can't solve, but if you figure out a better way, people, it'll give you an advantage, and it'll also help people plug in.